welcome to episode 127 of Checkpoint Chat. It's the final one for 2020. We made it. Made it, fam.
Countdown.
I'm joined as always by Matthew Figueroa.
That's me. I'm joined by...
I'm Alessandro.
Introduce yourself.
Oops, sorry.
I don't think I've
it's
ever
2020. We need this holiday. Definitely need this holiday.
This is a back-to-back recording. So if you listen to last week's episode, we recorded that like 10 minutes ago.
No ways. No, that's not a podcast's work.
It's been a wild Saturday. And we are going to now record this one, pop it into our time capsule for when you hear it today or whenever you listen, for our Game of the Year. Checkpoint Chat's Game of the Year, a.k.a. Matty and Sandy's individual Game of the Year list.
The most prestigious Game of the Year awards on the face of this earth.
If you get mentioned in these accolades, you know that your game has made it. Like,
you've
without
made
a
it,
doubt.
man. I mean, Jeff Keighley's got his awards. He's got a fancy stage, and he's got like an orchestra. Who needs that shit?
Jeff.
You just need two dudes in Johannesburg talking during a rainy day about your games. Then you know you've made it.
Jeff Keighley actually consults with us about his game awards because we're that prestigious. You know, he's like,
of course, yeah. That's why we're not allowed to vote in his Game Awards, because we've actually made all the decisions.
I mean,
already.
If you go back and you listen to the episode last week where we made our predictions, you'll notice, weirdly enough, that we were right in every single one. Despite having varying opinions on certain categories, those were tied when they were announced.
Yeah,
even
you see it. Like, who else would have called that except the people who made those decisions?
I can't believe Game of the Year is this and that. Wow, this has never happened before.
Incredible. No one could have predicted. We should get into like... I'm sure there's like a bookie keeping bets on winners for the Game of the Year awards. I mean, we could make a lot of money and probably go to prison for fraud.
Wow. I mean, assuming we actually do have anything to do with Jeff Keighley, which we don't.
We do have a photo with him.
We do have a photo with him. That is when he first approached us, not the other way around, to go, hey.
The funny part about that photo is that Matty had no idea who Jeff Keighley was at the time.
Keighley was. Literally, like, hey, that whole trip, I wish it happened a year later, because it was only like the following year where I really got to know personalities in the gaming industry. Because before then, I was like, I just like write news and whatever, but I'm not like actually actively learning and engaging with these people, you know? So that E3 was that was at Gamescom though when we met Jeff.
That was
Keighley,
Gamescom,
right?
yeah.
But the E3, like every 5 minutes, like, oh my god, there's so and so, and there's so and so. Oh wow, there's that, and I'm like, who are these people? I don't even know them. Now I know a lot of people, and I'm like, damn it.
I think we had arrived early that morning. We were walking, and I was like, is that Jeff Keighley? And you're like, who? I was like, it's Jeff Keighley. And you're like, okay.
I
was like,
recognized the name, but I was like, who the hell is Jeff? Like, I don't actually know why.
I was more taken aback at how short he was.
Yeah, he's super short.
Super short. But he was really nice. He's like, where are you guys from? I'm like, oh, South Africa, Johannesburg. And he's like, damn, that's far away. And I'm like, yeah, everyone says
we
that.
Can feel it.
He even tweeted. He's like, oh, meet these guys from South Africa. Very cool.
Nice.
He was a nice guy. Very chilled out. Yeah.
So
very short.
From that day onward, we knew that we were going to be doing Game Award.
Yeah, he was like, "Hey, you guys seem cool. Do you want to? I'm doing this wild idea. It's called Game Awards." And we were like, "Say no more."
Well, that's actually funny because that is probably
he started well before then.
2015 or 2016.
He started doing Game Awards with like Spike TV and stuff like that. Well,
no, but I mean like the mainstream like.
His like solo ones probably around there. Yeah. Because I remember in 2013 already. That's when No Man's Sky was announced, and that was Game Awards already.
That's wild.
Wow.
No Man's Sky,
big while ago.
The nominee for not Game of the Year, for one of the Game Awards categories. But this is not the Game Awards. This is the
Checkpoint Chat Awards.
Checkpoint Chat Awards. Although we're not.
So this is the participation ribbon of Game of the Year awards.
So Alessandro and I don't. So I know some media houses and publications, they get together and they pull votes and then they say like, this is IGN's Game of the Year. This is GameSpot's Game of the Year. We don't do that. We have our own individual lists, which we're going to run down, and we're going to just talk about the games that made us happy this year.
Basically, Matthew and I can't agree on anything, so we just gave up.
I mean, it's kind of difficult with two people. We could never do it like that.
Yeah, because it's like, I choose this. No, I choose this. Well, fuck you.
Fuck.
I veto your call.
I'm going to call a friend.
I can't imagine, like, I know that GameSpot's been having meetings for their Game of the Year discussions, and they just sound like a lot of work, like so much work. And I'm just like, to me, I feel like arguing about what should be Game of the Year really is like the worst way to end what is a good year of gaming.
Yeah.
Like, everyone will have differing opinions.
It's always going to be subjective.
I really hate the like, this website gave it to this, and this website's bullshit because it gave it to this. Like, I don't care.
It's just those people's opinions. I mean,
yeah, don't care. It's all subjective.
Also, on that, these are our opinions.
My list is better than yours.
Wow.
Objectively.
Please don't come at me in the comments saying your list is trash, because you know what? It's my list.
Your list is trash.
I can do what I want. We're going to have so much overlap, and everybody like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
nice.
So I suspect there might be only like 2 games that are different on our lists.
You never know.
And the only 2 games I think will be different on our list are 2 games you haven't played.
I mean, probably. But yeah, well, how do you want to kick this thing off? Do you want to start with some honorable mentions?
Honorable mentions, yeah. So we allowed ourselves 2 honorable mentions.
I've got 3 because I'm breaking the rules.
Wow. It's already off the rails.
Oh no, what can you say?
So just very briefly, my 2 honorable mentions are, weirdly enough, Astro's Playroom.
Oh wow.
Man, what a game.
I didn't even put that in here. Oh my god.
I know.
Hang on, let me just put your honorable mention.
Oh my god, now you got 4.
Because that's not even on my list, actually. Wow.
No, Matthew.
Okay, put that shit on there. Astro's Playroom.
Yeah. Astro's Playroom, pack-in game, but Jesus, what can you say? What a game. Like, just really good example of what the PS5 can do from a hardware perspective, and also just a really fun platformer, a real celebration of the generations of PlayStation hardware that have come before it. Some good, some bad, some weird. And I just, like, I can't recall a time when I was playing Astro's Playroom and I didn't have a smile on my face. Like, that stupid GPU song, that SSD song. Like,
it was just yesterday.
Great, top to bottom. Really liked it.
I think why, so from my point of view, why it was such a big surprise and why I enjoyed it so much was because I didn't expect it. It is like 100%. Okay, the PlayStation 5 comes with this little Astro's Playroom game in. Like, it showcases the features of the DualSense, whatever. But what I didn't expect was this massive love letter to the PlayStation brand. It's kind of funny. It's a bit like that Obama meme where it's Obama giving himself the medal.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like Jim Ryan giving himself a medal.
Yeah, but it's like PlayStation to PlayStation. It's like, look at our awesome brand, you know?
Yeah.
And I agree with you in that for like 99%, if not 100% of the game, I just had a big smile on my face because it was like, between the platforming or the cool users of the DualSense or the soundtrack or the references, there's just so much happening, so much cool stuff happening, and it's a good time. Like, I've said it to everyone who has a PS5, like, don't sleep on that game. Like, don't skip straight to Spider-Man or whatever, like, because, you know, you're doing yourself a disservice by not playing Astro's Playroom. And it's quick. It'll take you like 2 hours to finish the whole game, and to platinum it probably like another couple of hours. You know, it's not like a lengthy game, but it's something well worth playing.
No, it's super good. I really like it. Yeah, and I think, you know, it's free. If you got a PS5, you will do yourself a disservice if you miss out on that.
Play that game. It's a good time.
Other honorable mentions. You see, this is weird because I deleted them from my list by accident. Hold on. Let me just
let me just say one because I've got more than you. Okay, so
yeah, you do that.
I've got 4 honorable mentions now because of Astro's Playroom, but my next one, I've got Fall Guys, which is not a game of the year game in my eyes, but I still have a very soft spot for Fall Guys for what it's done. Well, like, my story with Fall Guys is that when it came out, I really thought it's going to be, it's like Takeshi's Castle. It's this game with, you know, it's basically a game of mini games and obstacle courses. You'll probably play it for like an hour, 2, maybe 3, and like move on, you know, to the next thing. But what I did not expect was playing this game for, I've probably played, I mean, it's not like massive numbers, but 30, 40 hours, which is way more than I thought I would put into this game. And it's just a good time. Like, I absolutely love how tongue-in-cheek it is and how self-aware, like, the social media account is. And yeah, it's just a fun time. I really enjoy it.
It is. It's a really good party game, and it hit like the social zeitgeist, sort of like almost like a Fortnite. Like everyone knew what Fall Guys was. Like I had my sister asking about Fall Guys, and she doesn't really do games at all. So
yeah. Honorable mention, Fall Guys.
Okay, I'm also doing 3 honorable mentions. Fuck you. I've got Black Mesa, which is
Black Mesa.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
It's a full-on remake of the original Half-Life. It's been in development for years from a very dedicated like modding community and development studio, and it finally came out this year, and it was the impetus that got me to finally sit down and actually play
everything else.
All of Half-Life. Yeah, I played like every Half-Life this year, but Half-Life 1, to think that that's a game that came out in 99, the year 2000, around about there.
Yeah, late 90s.
What a game. I mean, they've spruced up some things, especially the end level Zen in the alien world. But, you know, the core tenets, the story and the pacing, that's all still there from the original.
Much the same, yeah.
And I think, you know, if you've always heard about like Half-Life and always wondered, you know, you always thought about going back and giving it a go, like Black Mesa gives you a way to do that in 2020 without it feeling archaic. It's just really good. I loved it. I really, really loved it.
I need to play it because so like you said, it's been in development for a long time. I played it, good Lord, like not even joking, 5+ years ago.
Yeah, that's when I first picked it up as well.
And like I played a couple of levels like, this is really good, but I'll wait for the final product. You're on 2020 and it's finally out, so I do need to make some time.
They just released their final like big content patch for it as well. So now is the right time to play. Yeah, it's such a good game.
Need to get into that. Black Mesa. You done speaking about it because I'm going to hit you with my next game, Among Us.
Not a game, shocker!
Not a game of the year for me, but also Among Us is very, very similar to Fall Guys in that it's a game that just came left field, not even on my radar. When it was mentioned to me, I was like, cool, it's like a little party game. I'll play for an hour or two. And
it's a little baby game.
Yeah, little party game. I've put in many hours into Among Us, and even to my own surprise, Lenska like fell into the Among Us hole very hard, and she still loves playing it. And yeah, it's such a simple premise of like, you know, there's an imposter or two, and there are crewmates who just have to do tasks, and you just have to figure out who the bad people are. So I mean, that's what makes it stand out. I guess it's the people you play with and the interactions and the anecdotal stories that come from it.
I think the thing that surprises me most about Among Us is it really depends on the like decorum of its players. Like it really depends on the players following the rules that it can't enforce through the game. Yeah. And yet it works.
I mean, the fact that you can get into lobby with anyone and everyone knows like you have to mute your mic. Like exactly. It's this unwritten rule and people just know to do that.
It's very, and like you said, it's drawn in new players. Like it's very weird. A few weeks ago, I was at a friend of the show, Keegan Bestabash's house, and his girlfriend was talking about how she was chatting to Lenska while they were playing Among Us, and I was like, "Oh, this is bizarre.
This is a weird alternate reality that we live in."
Yeah. I'm also like, wow, the world is kind of small. It's so like odd.
Super small.
Yeah, it was cool. Very, very cool.
That's Among Us. What's your next honorable mention?
Demon's Souls.
It's
not on my top 5 because I haven't finished it. And even then, I still don't think it would crack the top 5, but it's definitely there. It's from Software game.
I didn't put it in my honorable mention list, but it's not in my top 5. It should be here though. It's a great game. Hijack there, but yeah, it's 100%. I echo that in that. I finished it, but I've like literally just finished it, so I can't really say I've had time to mull it over and be like, yes, it's a game of the year for me or whatever.
I'm just like, I'm having a great time with it. It's weird to call it like comfort food, but it's exactly the sort of experience I expected. But also it's just like a really good showcase of this ridiculously expensive console that I just bought, which I really like. It's smooth, it's beautiful. I'm having a great time just exploring that world. And in a way, it's a reminder of like, I played this game in 2009 and I hated it back then because I just didn't understand how these games worked. And now I'm just having a fantastic time. So it just shows that good design can stand the test of time. And I think Bluepoint did a good job bringing that to life.
Yeah, and on that, isn't it interesting that it also kind of shows how far you've come as a gamer?
In a way, yeah.
Like, because just sidebar, when I played Super Mario Galaxy, I mean, Super Mario Galaxy is by no means like a Souls-like game, but I remember like struggling in some parts of that game when I first played it back in the day. I played it this year on Switch and I breezed through that game, which just shows like I've really grown to love and get good at platformers. So it's interesting.
Oh, yeah. Have you seen yourself stream Celeste? Unreal.
Still need to. Celeste never goes on sale. I don't know why on PlayStation. I think I'm just going to buy it and platinum it one day.
Yeah, you should just do it.
Good Lord. Okay.
What's your last honorable mention?
This one will probably be a shocker to you and maybe some people, but Ghost of Tsushima. Not in my top 5.
I thought it would have been.
Hey?
I thought it would have been.
No, so it's tricky because Ghost of Tsushima, like there's a reason it's an honorable mention. It's a really good game. Like I acknowledge the game for what it is. This really colorful, beautiful open world that's just so engaging in a number of ways. But there was not enough space in my top 5 for it. That's literally if it was doing if we were doing a top 10, for example, it probably would have been like my
top
number 6.
Top 10 is too easy. Too easy is top 10.
Yeah, your top 5 when you sit, you go, which of my children do I not like enough to put
top 10 is like you get 8 good ones and then you feel like you're padding out the final 2.
Pad out the rest, yeah. Well, look, when you said top 5, I was like, oh man, like that's difficult. I've got so many good games. Like there are a lot of good games, but I have a top 5. So Ghost of Tsushima, just to reinforce and reiterate, it's a good game. Like, don't get me wrong. If this was a top 10, it would be my top 6, but there's just not enough space on my top 5 for it. So yeah.
I do know you enjoy that, and it's cool that you enjoyed that because you didn't really play Assassin's Creed games, and to me, that is more the Assassin's Creed game than the actual Assassin's Creed we got this year.
Well, Valhalla, not even a mention. Again, good game, but not anywhere in my top 10 list. So, yeah.
Not even close.
Not even. So, yeah. I
cool.
guess
My game of the year is Avengers. Just joking.
Wow. Another honorable... No, I'm kidding.
No. Sorry. No.
Okay. Any more honorable mentions from you?
No, that's all.
No. Okay, do you want to kick us off with your number 5? What is
cool.
Number 5 in Alessandro Land?
My number 5 is Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Listen, I didn't expect the game. Like, when I started playing it when the PS5 launched, I was like, yeah, there's more Spider-Man or whatever. And I ended up stopping and playing more Demon Souls and Astro's Playroom and stuff like that. I really got back into it last weekend. And then it just like it got its hooks in me like completely, like spending a bit of time with with the characters, Miles, Genki, Finn, Rio, his mother, just all those characters are just so well written, really good motivations. I think we spoke about it on the last week's podcast. It's only really like Troy Baker's Simon Krieger that is a bit of a letdown, but all these side characters, all the citizens of New York that you meet and help out, they're all so personable and well written. And the story's like a nice, smaller scale tale that is more about like community and family than anything else. And I think Miles is a great driver for that sort of story. So it's a phenomenal story coupled with gameplay changes that make that combat. That is like, when Arkham Asylum came out and introduced that free-flowing, the combat, which every game has like aped since then, this is like, I feel like we finally reached a point where it's like a 2.0 version. Like, it is smart, it is fluid, it's snappy, but you still have to think. You still have enemies that will kill you very quickly. You've got to learn how to crowd control really well, and you've got fun abilities that let you do that while still feeling smart about how you're getting in and around these situations. Yeah. So, top to bottom, like it is a refinement of Insomniac's Spider-Man, which I thought was brilliant as well, but this is head and shoulders better than that game, which is crazy to think about. Yeah. I love it. I think it's phenomenal.
I think if I had played it, it very well might have been in my top 5, or at least an honorable mention as well. So yeah, with my current games fetish, that is what I'm playing next. I'm very excited, given what you've said and what other people have, what praises you and others have given it. So, yeah,
I think it's I don't envy Insomniac having to follow this up because wow, they really are reaching the pinnacle of what a Spider-Man game I think is in the current age. Like, they've done a great job with this property. Really good job.
It's a good time. Okay, so my number 5, Animal Crossing,
Ooh.
New Horizons. Did you expect it to be higher?
I did, actually.
It's this year, so this top 5 is very tricky because I suppose that's the point of like a top 5 list. It was like you have to sit and really think, like, these are 5 things you absolutely love, but like, how do you rank them? So, I mean, Animal Crossing is in my top 5, and for reasons we've spoken about at length over and over again, on and off throughout the year, Animal Crossing is really, it was just comfort food at a time when lots of comfort food was needed. Like, it hits more or less when lockdowns around the world started. We couldn't go out and see friends or family, but yet with Animal Crossing, it was a thing of, it was just a way to not only escape like the, lockdown of just sitting at home, go visit your tropical island with all your villages, whatever. It was also a means to hang out with friends on their island. Mm-hmm. But I think like one standout moment, and I think you would agree, is like the best anecdotes I can give is on my birthday, which is in May, like sort of halfway through the year, just a few months after lockdown, Animal Crossing had a little birthday party for me. And it sounds so silly.
So good.
If you say that to a person who's never played the game or someone who's not a game, you say like, my villagers in Animal Crossing threw a birthday party for me. It'll sound so silly, like I acknowledge it, but it's not. The fact that it happened and it just, like you would know as well, your birthday was in April. And it was so funny because Lenska also fell into the Animal Crossing rabbit hole, and her birthday's in June. And I told her, like, wait for your birthday. Like, it's going to hit you. It's going to be real special. And she also, on her birthday, is like, that made me feel very emotional. Like that I had this little fictional birthday party. I was like, yeah, but that's Animal Crossing. It's just so wholesome and so positive and happy. And I think it just hits at such a good time. Like, even if Corona didn't happen this year, maybe the impact wouldn't have been as big, but the game itself is still real good. Bar some multiplayer annoyances, it's still a really good Nintendo game. So yeah, that's my number 5.
It's fantastic. I think I think it struck at the right, like Nintendo could have not planned when it came out and the environment it came out in, but like it really just struck when it needed to. It hit the chords that people needed at the time. It made people feel like they were still part of like a community when they were stuck in apartments. And I think it was, far more prevalent overseas where people were literally stuck in like very small single room apartments, spaces, So that sense of escapism came when it needed to. And there's issues with the game. Like its multiplayer is nonsense. Like the framework around some of its stuff is super weird, but it was my first Animal Crossing as well. I found having the routine in the midst of so much uncertainty was exactly what I needed. And like you said, the birthday thing, oh man, got me.
It just hits,
because we were in deep lockdown then. Like it was like, so it was really special. I played that game for like 3 months every single day, and I haven't played much recently, but it still holds a special place in my heart.
It's definitely a special game. Yeah. So that's my number 5.
Nice. My number 4 is Animal Crossing New Horizons.
I wondered where it rank up for you. So
the overlap begins. But that's kind of why I was just chatting about it. It's number 4 because for the same reasons. So good, so wholesome. I've really enjoyed visiting People's Islands. If you haven't checked out our series of that, we visited 2 South African creators, Jackie and Michaela. Two very different islands, and I just love seeing not only the dedication that people put into designing them, but just like what the game allows as well. Very inventive stuff. And it's just good. I think Nintendo's supporting it very well as well. The content drops for it have been extremely good.
Yeah, it's been consistent. And I mean, not only that, the fact that the game has seasons by default, like you can play the game throughout the year and it always feel and look different. I mean, the fact that there's different music for each season as well, it's like it always sounds different, which is just
and also
crazy.
Just what people have been using it for. Like you've got Gary Whitta who created a whole talk show within Animal Crossing. You've got game designer Rami Ishmael who during lockdown got other Muslim players from around the world to share in their, like Ramadan dinners within Animal Crossing. It's like incredible ways that this like little communal game is being used to connect people. I think it's fascinating.
It's very special.
Yeah, very good game.
So that's your number 4. My number 4, Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
Oh, a game I haven't played.
A game you have not played. And the only reason, I mean, like I've said at length now, if you know me, I'm a very, very big Ori fan. And the only reason it doesn't rank higher is because it's a really good game, but there are other games that are just as good, if not better, But just to quickly recap, Ori and the Will of the Wisps really takes what Moon Studios did with Blind Forest and they just improved a perfect game even more somehow. I've mentioned before how the combat, for example, in Blind Forest was very much, it's almost like static of you only have one attack, and that was that. It was more focused on the platforming and puzzle solving and just navigation.
That bash. Oh my God, that bash. So good.
The bash, yeah. Whereas Will of the Wisps, it's still very much all about it's got that it's the good Metroidvania of, areas are unlocked, and as you get abilities, you're going to explore. But there's this whole new system on top of that where you can equip. I mean, it very much reminded me of Hollow Knight, where you could equip charms, if I can just call them that, that give you either passive abilities or more health or just different things. And then on top of that, you had a whole host of different weapons you could use. So over and above your default melee weapon, you could get a whole lot of other tools to just help you navigate through this world. And it's beautiful.
So you had far more flexibility in the way you playing and the way you wanted to play.
Yeah, it gave players more choice, I guess, into, have a specific build or a different play style. But then just the game itself, visually, I don't know, there's nothing else to me that looks like Ori and the Will of the Wisp. It's just the way I've explained it before, it's you could literally pause a game at any moment and take a screenshot and it's a work of art. It's that much detail and it's that colorful and vivid. It's so nice to look at.
Just a beautiful description. It is the first one, Blind Forest, was just a stunning game, and everything I've seen of this one is just that dialed up to 11.
Yeah, I don't know how they did it, but it's just Blind Forest, but better in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my
I
number
really
4.
need to get to it.
Set some time aside.
It was almost like the thing where I was like, okay, I'll wait for the Series X to come out because then it's going to be, that whole 4K 120 hertz thing, and then I can't bring myself to spend that much money on a Series X when I know that's the only game I'm really looking forward to play, especially when I can play it on PC. So yeah, I should just get to that.
Just
honestly,
play it. It's a good time. So yeah, your number 3.
My number 3 is Half-Life Alyx, which shouldn't be too surprising. The whole reason I got into Black Mesa and Half-Life 2 this year was because Half-Life Alyx was coming out, and I'm like, well, I need to know what the story is, because I feel like I'm doing myself a disservice if I play this game without knowing it. And so I'm so glad I did that, because I don't think the game works without you knowing, especially when it comes to its ending. My goodness, if you don't know what it's referencing, you lose all that emotional resonance, really. But so it's two-part. Firstly, it's just a fantastic story. So it's a prequel to Half-Life 2. So you play as Alyx Vance, who is your companion in
Half-Life 2,
Episode 1 and Episode 2. And this is before Gordon has been woken up from wherever the fuck he was between Half-Life 1 and 2. But it manages to both be a prequel and a sequel to Episode 2 in a way that was unreal to me. I'm not going to say anything beyond that, because I think Valve very sneakily found a way to set the foundations of where they continue with Half-Life, and whether that's in VR or not in VR. I personally can't see how they don't do it in VR now, because I I can't see myself going back to playing a traditional Half-Life after playing something like this.
Yeah.
But man, they really, if you thought episode 2, if you've been waiting for something, some nuggets of information after episode 2, this really delivers on that.
Play. Yeah.
But beyond that, it's also just a phenomenal VR game. I don't have the Valve Index, so I'm not playing it the way Valve intends, you know what I mean? But I played it tethered to a PC. I'm using used my Oculus Quest, and it was just as good. It very responsive, very, very good design that helps you feel like within a lived world, so to speak.
Yeah.
So like you can break windows, you can break boxes. It feels very reactive. When a grenade comes at you, I could pick it up and throw it back at enemies. And there was enough like sort of design around the edges so that, when you're throwing a grenade, it's not expecting me to be super accurate, but it kind of knows where I'm trying to throw.
Yeah.
So every time I felt like a badass, like throwing this grenade back or something like that, or, in a firefight, it felt like I was accurate and precise. But then also like it does really cool things with the shooter formula where you can't just reload your gun after every 2 shots because each magazine you have keeps its bullet count persistent.
Okay. Yeah.
So like I had to watch, like I'm busy shooting. I'm watching that it's getting low on ammo, and then I have to like manually reload. And then I also have to keep count of how many magazines I have, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that tying in with the weapons, it just felt great. That along with the so you don't have a gravity gun in this game, but you've got gravity like gloves, which is such a cool mechanic in VR because I could see like if I killed an enemy in the distance and they dropped a magazine for my gun, I could like point my hand at that, and you literally like do like a yanking motion with your hand. And as soon as you do that, the thing comes towards you and then you catch it. You have to like manually catch it in midair. Yeah. And I tell you, like being down to your last clip, killing an enemy, yanking that thing, quickly reloading your gun and then killing another enemy. It is some of the coolest VR moments I've ever had in a game.
That's awesome.
And that's just in combat. Then, there's lots of puzzles to solve and, physics puzzles in true Half-Life fashion. But yeah, it is the VR game to play. If you've got a VR headset, like you have to play Half-Life Alyx in some way. It's just phenomenal. And yeah, like I said, that end scene still gives me chills. I'm getting like goosebumps thinking about it. It's something else. It's really, for me. Really good.
So what is that? Is your number 3?
Number 3.
My number 3. I'm guessing your number 2. The Last of Us Part 2.
Hey, you're right. It is my number 2.
I mean, what could we say about The Last of Us Part 2 that hasn't been said 3 million times already? Other than that, like, it is a pinnacle title for Naughty Dog for a number of reasons. I mean, the one that comes to mind, and I don't think it's like the reason people harp on about it, but the fact that this game looks as good as it does and ran perfectly on my base PS4, like still blows my mind. It was not one point in that game that I ever have, like, I don't know, FPS slowdown or lag, whatever. It's just
you didn't feel optimized. Like you're like, oh man, this really needs a pro.
Yeah, no, it was just optimized so well, and it just helped keep me immersed in that like very dreary world, because The Last of Us Part 2 is not, it's not a happy game. Like it's really not.
No, it's definitely not. No.
That is not a game you play to go like, oh, I feel good about my life. That is a very heavy game. But I think that's why you and I have it so high up on our lists anyways, because it left such an impact. It told the story, and it's not the story a lot of people wanted to hear, but you know what? I appreciate Naughty Dog for trying what they did, and I think they really pulled it off. So yeah.
I think it's not the story I was expecting, especially because it has characters that they didn't really showcase before the game came out. Like right now, it's very hard to not know the central like twist of that game. But you know, playing it without that knowledge was really something. I think it makes good on the choices Joel and Ellie made in the first game in very surprising ways.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of times whenever someone talks about media or story that is like gritty and gray, the whole idea is like there are no good guys, there are no heroes. And that's true for The Last of Us 2, but I feel like it does it in such a way that a movie wouldn't be able to do it, because you're being forced to relive things from different perspectives.
Yeah.
And because of that, it really shades in those gray areas in interesting ways. It's a phenomenal story. I think you can definitely find criticisms, and I've read, enough criticisms of its structure and what it says. But at the same time, I'm not going to deny that it gut punched me in so many different ways throughout its story, and the ending and the run up to the ending is still, it's unbelievable. It's really, that epilogue is something else. It's phenomenal. Just like gameplay wise, it's like really good. Like, they didn't just make the same game with a different story.
Well, like my only real criticism when it comes to gameplay is the fact that, like, while I enjoy exploring the environments, the fact that I was forced to like loot every drawer possible, it just drew out the experience.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm kind of glad I played on the harder difficulty, because it forced me to explore every little space and every corner. And for that reason, I did take notes of like, oh, I'm in a coffee shop now. I'm in a bicycle store. Like, no asset in that game felt reused. It felt like every single place you went was a whole new designed thing, if that makes sense. Like, all the derelict stores you walk through, like, not one was the same. Like, maybe there were, but none come to mind. It was all a thing of, there was like an individual brand almost, individual this, and it just shows that the amounts of detail and care that Naughty Dog put into the games. And like, there's a reason it comes out so polished, because they really pay so much attention to every little piece of detail.
It's the small details, yeah. It's like all the little things you expect to be like shrugged off and like, oh, okay, I understand why this thing doesn't react in this way, because like, who cares, but every little interaction is catered for in that game. It really is cool. And I think the combat, like, because you're shifting to playing as Ellie as opposed to Joel, they obviously had to make concessions in the fact that she's definitely not as big and as physically strong as him. But she still has to find a way to, take on, and she does take on a lot of enemies. And I think the re-emphasis on stealth really works. I think it's like one of the best stealth games I've played this generation, even though it's not specifically a stealth game.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, if you go into any encounter guns blazing, like, chances are you're going to die.
Dead.
Like, you need to try even the odds by being stealthy. So,
and on top of that, it's like, I found it so dynamic in the way that when enemies found bodies, they reacted far more logically than I have in other games. Like, like I love Splinter Cell, but like, it's a very rudimentary nowadays when you look at it in terms of stealth. Like, they can find a body and go on alert, but they will still react really stupidly to hearing a noise, even though they know someone is around there. You know what I mean? Last of Us isn't like that. As soon as enemies are hyper aware, they are hyper aware, and they react to things very, very logically and realistically. But at the same time, they also react well to, like, if I break line of sight, it doesn't feel like they can find me in a way that I don't think is fair,
Yeah.
Engaging and re-engaging stealth felt very natural there, and the flow of each combat encounter was really, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Those melee kills were brutal though. My goodness.
It's a real good game. I mean, and just the characters themselves, like, it standouts for me. Just the people that you paired with throughout the game. And there's stories like Ellie and Dina, and in particular, I really enjoyed Dina. Abby and Lev.
Yes.
Like, just their back and forth on, like, he's like so deep rooted in this religion, and she's like anti-religion in a sense, and they sit and they bounce ideas off each other, and they kind of just get to understand each other. And I mean, I don't know how possible that is in other games that don't make you walk like a mile in a character's shoes, whatever. They make you feel and experience those same hardships those people have gone through. So real good.
I think one of my favorite moments is still like experiencing vertigo through a character's like I wouldn't say I have vertigo, but heights definitely do weird things to me. But like seeing that represented in such a strong way in a game, like I thought mechanically and visually, it was done so smartly. It was very cool. I don't know, like it's such a small throwaway scene, but it was just, I thought it was really awesome.
No, it was good. I mean, lots of scenes in that game stick out for me.
The only thing I think we both agreed on when we chatted about it earlier this year is that not the epilogue in terms of story content, but the way the game pads out those last 2 hours, I think are really bad.
It feels
very artificial.
It's almost like they could have wrapped it up earlier, but then it just out of nowhere, there's another 2 hours. You're like, I don't understand the reason for introducing a whole new enemy faction and like that. It just, that to me is like the only big misstep in the game. Otherwise, near flawless game, I'd say.
Really good. Real good. Really, really good.
But not the game of the year for either of us. I think.
Wait, what was that? What was that? That was your number 3, right?
That's my number 3. I know
so that was my number 2. So I'm not going to harp on about it again, but that's my number 2. So yeah. What is your number 2?
My number 2 is your number 1. It's Hades.
Hades. Christ, what's your number 1?
Yeah, it'll make sense when you hear it.
Probably. Yeah, probably.
But Hades, my God, this game, it's so funny because like I don't know if I've mentioned on this particular podcast, but Supergiant, they make great games. Like there's no doubt about it. Their games have all got like Supergiant charm to them, like some sort of flavor that, like, oh, it's clearly the studio.
They
like,
all follow the same like visual language, which is interesting.
Yeah. But now Hades feels like it's the first game that they've made where it's like penetrated mainstream. It feels like a lot of people are like, oh shit, like Hades is this game made by this indie studio called Supergiant. And with good reason, because it takes roguelikes, and it just...
I think it's a roguelike.
Roguelike.
Or is it roguelite? No, it's roguelite.
Roguelite. And it's just perfected this formula of it's a roguelite, but it has a story that keeps evolving and playing out as you play the game. It's not a thing of... Like, I've mentioned examples of Dead Cells, for example, where I really enjoy the game, but after like the 20th or 30th run, you're seeing the same stuff, you're reading the same notes. Whereas in Hades, it feels like every run I'm getting some scrap of new story, I'm meeting a new character, or the main narrative is, progressing in some way. And it's just structured and designed in such a way that it works. Like, I don't know what roguelites will look like after this. This is definitely to me like this is what you should strive for if you're making a story-based roguelite. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I wouldn't be shocked if people were like, oh, Supergiant made games before this, because, if this is your first experience of them, like this is their 4th game. But their other 3, I mean, I think Bastion was the other one closest to penetrating like the zeitgeist here, because it came out at a time where Xbox Live Arcade games were big, like everyone was looking at that. And it was like an isometric action game. Bastion is awesome. But then like Transistor turns it into like a weird turn-based thing, and Pyre is like a narrative sports ball game, which is super... Pyre is fantastic. Like people don't give Pyre a bad rap, but I feel like not enough people played Pyre, and it is probably one of their best stories, like Supergiant stories. It's so good. But Hades is weird because I feel like not many people were talking about it in early access.
No.
Like I bought it when it was in early access and I played a bit and I was like, this seems good. It never struck me as this is going to consume my life in a way that I didn't expect it would this year. But man, when it launched, it fucking launched. It was out there. But I think the thing that grabs me about it more than say like a Dead Cells, because I played Dead Cells, I never finished Dead Cells, and I appreciated Dead Cells like combat. I thought its combat was really snappy and whatever, but it never had the hooks that Hades had with me. For me, I think it comes back to what you said, is the story. Like every run of mine feels consequential. It feels like it is part of a building block to the overall story. And just the dialogue that doesn't repeat, the little, the conversations Zagreus can have with all the other characters in the game. And then on top of it being part of Greek mythology, which is, familiar to a lot of people. A lot of people know who Zeus is. A lot of people know who Hades is. I think that really just helps the story along, and Supergiant's spin on it is really good. From a story perspective, very good.
Yeah, they made, so growing up, you always knew Hades is like always the master of the underworld, like big, dark and bad, like from the Disney movie Hercules. Like that's one of the touch points, for example. But now it's like, no, Hades is just a dude doing a job in the underworld, like,
and a job that he didn't really want in the first place.
It's a job he didn't want. He's the father to this dude Zagreus, who just keeps trying to escape from hell. For goodness sake, like how annoying! And I don't know, it just gave weight to a character that I'd never really thought twice about. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, and Hades obviously isn't the star of the game. It's Zagreus, whose sole intent is like, I'm tired of being in hell. Basically, I just want to, the underworld. I just want to escape, and that's such a clever loop of, well, if you die, you can't actually die. Well, if you die, you go back to like the start of the underworld, because that's what happens when you die, and you just keep trying again and again and again. So like even narratively, it makes sense how he keeps coming back and trying to run and escape out of this place.
Or even when you end, because like when you finally beat it and escape, they have to find a way to make you returning make sense. And even that makes like narrative sense in the way that it's like you need to complete this game X number of times to see the full story. You know what I mean? And then on top of that, the way they've designed around like, okay, you've completed this. How do you make it more challenging for yourself? How can we goad you into cranking up the difficulty, to get items that let you upgrade your weapons in different ways. So it keeps feeding you new ways to play the game. I think, the combat is tight, but the combat is tight because all the weapons are fantastic to use. They just feel great.
And not only that, the various guard boons you get, they interact with each other in very interesting ways as well. Like
very, very interesting ways.
With the weapons and sometimes each other in interesting ways. Like the fact that you'll sometimes find a boon that's from two guards and it combines some of the effects together in like a very unique way. It's like, they really put a lot of attention into detail and the various kinds of builds and weapon like runs you can do. And it shows, like you can see the attention to detail and quality in this game.
It's really, the amount of thought that must have gone into the synergy between, you've got 6 weapons, but each of the weapons have 4 aspects. So they can each, or 5 aspects, so they can each change. And the aspects change them in small, but like subtle ways that really change the way you play as with that weapon. And then you combine that with the random boons that you can get, like, it's exceptional. Like I cannot believe that there is a weapon in the game which is just a shield, and that it can be like one of the best weapons in the game, like blocking, rushing, throwing your shield like Captain America in the underworld. Like all sorts of amazing things. Like then the bow and arrow is like this really offensive ranged weapon, while you've got these like fists that help draw people into you so you can do mad area of effect damage. Like it's just such a great, I think the best part, I mean, the reason I probably took so long to get a first clear was because I was changing weapons every single run, and that really, I struggled to get comfortable with them, but at the same time, every run felt different.
Yeah, and
every run
still
felt
farming
unique.
up resources. You're still learning the game as you go.
And then the boss design, like because you're facing so many bosses over and over again, like the boss design, the way they twist that over time is very smart, and again ties into the story. Like it's I mean, the fact that you can get to a point where Zagreus changes the name of one of the bosses just because he's giving him shit, and then that name reflects in the health bar of the boss. It's like
everywhere.
Small things that are just so ridiculous and so fun.
It's really, really great.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect game on the Switch as well.
Yeah, I see. I'm just waiting for that cross save because I'll probably pick it up on Switch, because the nature of a game like that is that you can play it. I've played 60, 65 hours. I can very easily put in the same amount, if not more.
Like I've played like 50 and I haven't finished the game 10 times, so I still got story to get to.
you got so much story to get to.
I mean, I knew this game was like a game of the year when you were like, do you realize you've played this for 45 hours? And I was like, no ways.
No,
and I looked at my time on Switch
idea.
And I was like, what the fuck? Like, that is crazy. I was, for weeks, it was all I was playing. I was literally just sitting in front of my TV, just pumping out run after run after run.
Well, I just want to look now. I think I'm on 60 something. But even that, like, I did it in such a short space of time. Like, it wasn't a thing of, I played this game over 2 months and I played this amount of time, whatever. It's like literally, over this period of just 3 weeks to a month, I'd say, I played 59.3 hours.
Jesus.
It's insane.
No,
it's
a phenomenal game. Story, combat is tight. It's visually like gorgeous, I think. And yeah, I love it. Supergiant's best game by far, which is saying a lot because I've loved all their games. So,
yeah. And again, sorry, just to reiterate, this is an indie studio. It's like they don't have these millions upon millions of dollars for like big production budgets.
Nope. They don't have a publisher. They self-publish.
Yeah, like everything's done in-house by this very small knit team. And this is one good way to convey it. The guy who does the music, the music in the game, is also a guy who voices the main character and some other side characters. It's like, okay.
They've got they're one of the few studios I know that has like in-house voice actors. So Logan Cunningham is employed by Supergiant Games, and he's voiced
just a voice actor.
Yeah, in all of their games. And then you've got Darren Korb, who is their in-house, soundtrack and audio. They're not going out and getting like Austin Wintory or something like that.
No.
And that soundtrack is a fucking banger, as it always is. It's Darren Korb and
it's Ashley
something. Oh, I have to look it up. And Ashley Barrett, yeah, she's often vocals on a lot of tracks that he does, and she also voice acts in this game. And they are just, there's been not E3s, but PAXs where they've performed live, and I would give anything to see that.
To be in the audience here.
Yeah.
So yeah, Hades, what a game. If you haven't played it, it's on PC and on Switch, and I'm sure it won't be long before it's on other consoles.
I was actually thinking about it in between our break between the two podcasts. I wouldn't be surprised if at the Game Awards they go, well, by now we would know.
Oh, yeah.
But if they go, hey, it's out on other consoles and cross-save is active now, something like that.
I mean, that'd be...
They're a small studio, so I'm not expecting it. But if it happened, I'd be like, yeah, cool.
That's cool. Cool. Okay, well, so that's your number one, and it's a good choice.
That's my number one. Anyone who listens to this podcast shouldn't be surprised because I've been saying this for months that I don't think a game
you said it
will come around to beat that. Since
the game came out, you're like, this is my game of the year.
Listen, the PS5 and its exclusives gave it a run for their money, but Hades it's a game I haven't stopped thinking about to this day. Yeah.
See, but now my game of the year, I don't think it'll be many people's game of the year, but it is definitely something that is...
If you say Mario the Origami King, I'm going to be fascinated.
How did you know? No. It's another PlayStation exclusive. It's Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Oh, duh. Yeah, fuck. I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
I mean, I've really given this a lot of thought. So like I've mentioned, I've had conversations with Lenska where I sit and I lay out why I like each of the Game of the Year nominees that we had in the Game Awards. But I just think Final Fantasy VII Remake in particular is special to me because it is a remake of a game I played when I was a kid. I have very vivid memories of playing the first Final Fantasy VII on a PlayStation 1 on my square TV in my bedroom, years ago, long time ago.
If you play too much TV, you're going to get square eyes. Remember that?
Square eyes. I'm wearing square frames. But I mean, the reality is when you revisit some old games, they don't quite look or feel the same way that you remember them, because the reality is when you're a kid or a teenager, whatever, you sort of, you play a game and you remember it in a certain way.
Rose-tinted glasses, yeah.
Yeah, if you play Final Fantasy VII today, the original, look, I've played it recently and it still holds up. I enjoy it, but the visuals are very blocky. It's dated in a lot of ways. But Final Fantasy VII Remake, the studio had a tall task ahead of them purely because this is a beloved Final Fantasy. The most popular one, hands down, across all of them. If you had to do a vote, Final Fantasy VII is probably the most popular.
It's the most well-known one, for
it's
sure.
The most well-known,
Especially the content that's in this remake. Midgar is probably the most well-known city in Final Fantasy VII. Yeah.
So now to take that game and remake it in a way that is both new but still familiar, that it pleases old fans but still is accessible to new fans. Just saying that, imagine being in a drawing room. How do you do that? But I really, really think they nailed it. I know there's criticism that this is a part one of a greater story, but they couldn't have done it any other way. After having played the game now and seen the scope of Midgar alone, it would be very silly of them to try to squeeze the entire game into an experience of the same level. It wouldn't work.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So Yeah, so I just think why it's so memorable for me is like I finished the game and almost immediately I started it again. I was like, I'm going to platinum it. And I played the game twice in a row, which is something I never do.
Did you end up getting the platinum?
I got the platinum, yeah. So the platinum is basically you have to finish the game on hard mode. And even then, so the game's very much doable, like still challenging on normal mode, but it's not like you're not going to, it's not Demon Souls, basically. You're not going to like cry over, losing to a boss. But when you go into hard mode, that's when you really start appreciating different builds and different possibilities in the game. And yeah, the combat system, like I've mentioned before, it's this
phenomenal.
Weird, it's this weird marriage of like, oh, well, we don't really want to do turn-based. We want to modernize it, but we're going to do both. So it's like, it's full-on third-person action, but you can still stay down time. And
it's like really, really, I mean, coming off of a game we both enjoyed, Final Fantasy 15, I really thought that it was going to be very similar to that combat system. And 15 has a good looking and dynamic one. I don't think it's deep at all. No, I think 15 is very button mashy. This is a very cerebral combat system.
Yeah, and my biggest criticism with 15 is that, like, did you ever use magic in 15?
Very, very little. I got Ignis to use magic.
But like very sparingly, right? It was, at the end of the day, it was just you playing as Noctis and just button mashing and dodging your way through every fight.
Bouncing between enemies every now and then.
Yeah, there was like very little thought actually given to what weapon am I using? What build am I doing? Like,
absolutely not. Really I didn't really think about the makeup of my team. I didn't think about, okay, this enemy needs to be hit by this attack to be weak and this.
Yeah. Whereas Final Fantasy VII is 100%, especially in the hard mode, it's like, I can't just button mash my way through this enemy. I have to find what their weakness is. I need to figure out how to stagger them. I need to build appropriately. And just, I don't know, like combat aside, just the way they reimagined Midgar with these full-on cutscenes, like gorgeous cutscenes. And it's all these characters you know and love, but they're like colored in other bits of the game that was not possible in the original. So yeah, like for that reason and many other reasons, that's my game of the year. And I'm very excited for the next one. Like,
I think the reason why Remake also sticks out so well is, like you said, it's like this homage to the original, but at the same time, it delivers on the promise of how your imagination remembers that game. Like, you play the original now, and you can see, obviously, it's a PlayStation 1 game, but in your imagination, when you're watching Cloud and Aerith and everyone fight on the battlefield, like you imagine the dynamics of that being, if it was in real life, how it would look. And this game is that. It's like, this is how that action would play out if it wasn't turn-based. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The characters are just given more room to breathe. You get very awesome side stories. And the voice acting is really good.
The voice acting is like top notch, and
visually it's unbelievable. Like, I mean, really incredible looking game.
Yeah, so like I mentioned the fact that I mentioned earlier with The Last of Us 2, Final Fantasy VII Remake is by no means as good looking as The Last of Us 2, but
it's close.
The fact that it looks as good as it does, and like with combat, there are 3 main characters running around with 1+ enemies, and there's just all these visual effects going on, and not at no point does the performance drop at all. It runs like so smoothly. I'm like, how is this a PS4 game? Even the environments, like when you are in the slums of Midgar, you like pan up, like, oh my god, like I'm in the slums. I can look up at the plate. It's unreal how they've taken like the original game and just really like given it a proper reimagining.
But at the same time, it's familiar. It's not like
it's super familiar. Yeah.
It's like it's not like I don't recognize this game, because the first one, it's all blocky and whatever, but the static hand-drawn backgrounds are still beautiful today. I think they look stunning. And in 3D, there's a very easy way to mess that up. But I think they nailed the aesthetic. And like you were saying in the last episode of the podcast, the music is something else.
I think that for me alone is like a milestone of what can be done with music. But it's funny because it could only work with Final Fantasy VII because it's got an existing soundtrack from the 90s, whatever. But the fact that they took that soundtrack and remixed it and overlapped themes that you know, and then just they contextualized it in the story. It's
they
really,
could have
really
easily just been
else.
like, well, this is the melody, we've got the sheet music, let's just record it with a full orchestra.
I mean,
but they went above and beyond.
Yeah, like you'd know the opening area, it's the the train mission.
Good.
That in the first game had like one song, for example, like the typical song, and then like the boss theme, whatever. But in Remake, it's like it starts out with a theme, but throughout that opening hour, however long it is, it constantly changes, and there's certain tones that are introduced and taken away, and then it peaks and it goes down. It's like, I need the soundtrack to be on Spotify. It's not, but it's like 6 or 7 CDs long, and I promise you, like when you listen to it over and over again, you start to notice like, oh my god, I can't believe how they brought this faction's theme in or this character's theme, and then they like subtly introduced the Shinra theme. It's like, yeah, like I don't know what they're gonna do with the next game.
Yeah.
Because it feels like they really put all the effort into this game's soundtrack. But Final Fantasy VII's got other themes that are not present here that will be used in other ways. So yeah, it really stood out for me. And again, like this year I think had some strong titles. I mean, we've got Hades, Ori, The Last of Us, Animal Crossing, but Final Fantasy VII, I think for me personally, is the one that really stands out, purely because I think it just hit me like right in the nostalgia in such a good way. Like, it's a good game. If you never played Final Fantasy VII, I think you'll still love this game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It doesn't require the nostalgia to be a good game, which is why it's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think it has one of the best intros to a game this year. I think the only one that comes close to it is actually Ghost of Tsushima, which I played. I played the opening again fairly recently, and the late title card reveal on that game is something else. It is so good.
Like, oh my god.
It's fucking incredible. And like Final Fantasy VII Remake doesn't have a late title card reveal, but that first hour where it walks you through how to play the game, but also like it's showing you, because I mean the opening to 7 is so iconic. It's like everyone knows the Scorpion tank, and just seeing that was like, oh my god. With cinematic flair. Like, it really showed me, like, oh, I understand what this game is now.
Yeah,
like,
not only that, so like when they showed that gameplay revealed, it's like, okay, the Scorpion boss itself has like all these cinematic cuts and these different phases. Like, how are they going to carry that out for the rest of the game? Like, they can't. They really do. Yeah. They really do. Each boss has a phase, but like whenever you trigger the phase, there's like this big cinematic moment, and it's just,
Like, it's weird that I'm talking so positively about this game that didn't even feature on my list, but I haven't played enough of it.
But you have dabbled with it, so you understand. Yeah,
I've played like enough. The few hours I have played have impressed me so much. It's a great game. Yeah, that's a worthy number one. I should have guessed that, actually.
Yeah, when you're like, what is it? I'm like, how do you not know?
Yeah, I was like, what is missing from Matthew's list? I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
Oh, that's our...
That's Game of the Year. So Matthew's Game of the Year. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Mine, Hades. A lot of crossover with Animal Crossing and Hades and The Last of Us 2. So,
it's actually, I think our lists were identical, except my number one was different to yours, and it just shifted yours out a bit.
And and I had Half-Life and you didn't.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's been a good year for games. I think when we were going through the list of releases this year, I can understand why some people felt like it was a bit sparse. Like, firstly, it was a pandemic. So firstly, we got hit with end of gen and a pandemic all at once, which is like the worst case scenario. But I feel like the games that did come out really hit in the way that they needed to. And then you had surprises like Hades. I didn't expect to be this good. I didn't expect Animal Crossing to hit me in the way that it did. And I didn't expect Half-Life Alyx to be as good as it was. So lots of surprises there.
I think it was I don't know. I don't think it's the greatest year in gaming, but there was some real gems this year.
Yeah, there's some real best of generation games that came out this year for sure. So
yeah,
let us know if you're listening to this in a podcast, you can tweet at us or email us with your Game of the Year list, what you found the most engaging, the most fun to play this year. If you're watching on YouTube, hit it in the comments. Love to hear from you guys in the comment section about what you thought was the best. Yeah. And again, this is our last episode for the year of 2020. We made it, fam.
We
did it.
May 2021 be better.
But Matthew and I are taking some well-deserved time off. Not that we don't love podcasting. I love podcasting. It's more that I won't be at home to be able to podcast.
Wow.
I'm leaving, Matthew.
Can't believe this.
But we will be away. We'll be back in early Jan. We'll communicate on Twitter at Checkpoint Chat when that will be exactly, but I'd say early Jan. So yeah, have a good festive season. If you celebrate Christmas, have a good Christmas. If you don't, just enjoy the time off.
Enjoy the break,
sorry that there's so many Christmas movies. It must be very annoying.
Sorry for Mariah Carey.
Fuck, we all are, don't worry. Well, not from Mariah Carey, just her Christmas songs.
Just her Christmas songs.
Did you? Speaking of, there is a Christmas album out that mixes Legend of Zelda music with Christmas carols, and it is phenomenal.
I thought you were going to say that it mixes Legend of Zelda music with Mariah Carey, and I was about to have my mind blown.
That should be next, though. That should be next.
Good Lord.
But yeah, have a great holiday season. Be safe. If you're driving places, travel safely. And we will see you in the new year for a whole new year of games. Shenanigans. New consoles. It's kicking off. Thank you so much for listening to us in 2020. We appreciate you. And we'll see you next time.
See you next year. You can make the joke. Oh, see you next year. Bye.
This is why I'm leaving.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.